The morning light falls softly through the colonnades of the Stoa Poikile. Marble pillars stand in their quiet dignity, their surfaces warmed by the first rays of the sun. The air is still cool, carrying the faint scent of olive groves from the hills beyond Athens. Merchants are only just beginning to stir. A few call out gentle greetings, their voices low and unhurried, as if reluctant to disturb the peace that clings to the streets. Beside you walks an elder philosopher, his robe draped with the ease of long habit. His hair, silver as the first frost on winter fields, shifts slightly in the morning breeze. His gaze is not fixed on the people or the horizon, but somewhere inward, deeper. When he speaks, his voice is calm, steady, and carries the weight of many such mornings. Anger, he says, is a fire that burns its bearer first. To the one who holds it, it feels like strength, but it blinds the mind, distorts the truth, and leaves the soul scorched long after the moment has passed. You follow him toward the edge of the marketplace. This place is unhurried, yet you notice sparks of irritation, small, almost invisible, among others the merchant frowning. When a customer offers too few coins, the farmer scolding his son for dropping a basket of figs. The elder's eyes rest on these scenes, as though they are lines from a book he has read many times. Do you see, he asks, each man believes his anger is justified, yet each is a prisoner to a trigger, an unseen chain. A coin, a clumsy hand, a careless word, and they surrender their freedom of mind. A fountain stands ahead, water flowing clear from the mouth of a carved lion. You kneel together, cupping your hands to drink. The cool water runs through you, reminding you that both body and mind can be soothed with the simplest of acts. In my youth, the philosopher continues, I was quick to wrath. Once, a fellow student mocked my reasoning before a crowd, and I let my voice rise until it echoed off the walls. I thought I was defending my honor, but when the crowd dispersed, all that remained was the memory of my loss of composure. My teacher did not scold me. He simply asked, who holds power over you if a mere insult can command your tongue? As you walk again, the city's rhythm awakens, the shuffle of sandals, the calls of traders, the bray of a donkey in the distance. Each sound weaves into the morning, a quiet reminder that life moves on, whether in harmony or discord. To avoid this trigger, the elder says, you must see it before it strikes. Like a storm far on the horizon, anger shows itself first in the body, a tightening in the chest, heat in the face, a sharpening of the voice. At that moment, you have a choice. Step back, breathe, ask, is this worth my peace? You pass a group of young men debating under an archway. Their words are heated, though not yet hostile. One laughs sharply, the other stiffens. You watch irritation curl like smoke at the edges of their exchange. The elder rests a hand lightly on your shoulder. A Stoic learns to see such moments not as battles to be won, but as fires to be left unfed. Without fuel, they fade. The path turns toward a garden shaded by fig trees. Sunlight filters gently through the leaves. Birds sing softly, their voices threading the air like fine silk. The elder's voice lowers, carrying an intimacy that draws you closer. There will always be provocations from strangers, from loved ones, even from your own thoughts. But if you meet them with stillness, anger will find no home in you. You will walk through the marketplace as though a garden untouched by its thorns. You pause beside a worn stone bench. The elder sits, watching how light moves across the tiles. Neither of you speaks for a while, and the silence feels full rather than empty. It is in this quiet that his words settle, not as rules to follow, but as a way of life. A bell chimes somewhere in the distance. The sound is clear, unhurried, and fades gently into the air. The elder rises, adjusting his robe. "Come," he says with a faint smile. "There are other chains to recognize and to slip free from before the day is done." You stand feeling lighter, as if a small stone you had carried unknowingly in your chest has been set down. The path ahead is bright, and though you do not yet know the name of the next lesson, you are ready to walk toward it. The road winds gently away from the marketplace, leading you through a narrow street where the walls are painted in fading colors: ochre, deep red, soft blue. The scent of baking bread drifts from an open doorway, mingling with the faint aroma of crushed herbs laid out to dry. Ahead, the street widens into a quiet square. At its center stands a shallow pool where lilies rest upon still water, their white petals luminous in the morning light. The elder walks at an unhurried pace, hands clasped loosely behind his back. His eyes, though calm, seem to notice everything: the way the sunlight catches on the edge of a rooftop tile, the delicate movement of a cat winding between table legs. He stops near the pool, gazing at the reflection of the sky upon its surface. "Do you see this water?" he asks. Smooth and still, it reflects the world as it is, but if disturbed by the hand, the reflection is broken, and truth becomes a shifting thing. Vanity is much like this. It stirs the mind until we see not what is real, but what we wish to see reflected back at us. As you stand beside him, a pair of young men enter the square. Their robes are freshly dyed, and their hair has been oiled to shine in the light. They speak in loud tones, gesturing to the passers-by as if to invite admiration. One pauses to adjust a bronze clasp on his cloak, glancing into the water to check his appearance. The elder's gaze follows them for a moment before returning to the pool. "It is not wrong to take care in one's dress or bearing," he says quietly. But when the hunger for approval grows stronger than the desire for truth, a man begins to serve an unworthy master. Vanity feeds on the gaze of others. It lives only when noticed, and so it leads us to shape our lives for show rather than for substance. The sound of sandals on stone echoes as a woman passes, balancing a basket of figs upon her head. She walks with quiet dignity, her steps unhurried, her eyes neither seeking nor avoiding the attention of others. The elder nods slightly toward her. See how she moves, not for display, but from the balance within her. This is what the Stoics guard: the freedom to live without bending to the shifting winds of public opinion. You move together toward the edge of the square, where a row of olive trees casts gentle shade. A bench beneath one of them offers rest, and the elder sits, his robe folding neatly about him. The leaves above sway lightly, scattering flecks of sunlight across the ground. "When I was younger," he continues, "I sought the approval of men who had little wisdom to give. Their praise warmed me for a moment, like wine on a cold evening, but it faded quickly, and I was left to chase it again. It was not until I turned my efforts toward living by principle that I learned the praise of others is neither food nor shelter. It cannot sustain you." A soft breeze stirs the branches overhead. Somewhere nearby, a lute is being played, its gentle notes drifting in and out, like the sound of a conversation just beyond hearing. To avoid the pull of vanity, the elder says, you must first see the ways it calls to you. It will appear as the hope of admiration, the fear of being overlooked, the urge to shape your words for applause rather than truth. When these moments come, ask yourself, if no one were to see this, would I still do it? If the answer is no, then perhaps it is not worth doing at all. From where you sit, you can see the young men again as they leave the square. Their voices fade with distance, but their laughter rises sharply now and then, like the bright flash of a coin in sunlight. The elder's gaze follows them one last time before settling once more on the pool. "Remember," he says, "vanity is a tether as strong as any chain, but it is made by your own hands, and so you can choose to let it fall. When your mind is free from the need to be seen, you will find that life opens in 1,000 quiet ways, ways that no applause can give you, but which fill you more deeply than any cheer." The sun has climbed higher now, its warmth settling into the stones beneath your feet. A shadow passes briefly over the square as a bird glides overhead, its wings outstretched and unhurried. The elder rises, the moment's lesson complete, yet not marked by any declaration. Instead, he simply gestures toward a path leading out of the square, its flagstones bordered by wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. You fall into step beside him, leaving behind the still pool, the olive shade, and the echo of the lute. Ahead, the path bends slightly, and the sounds of the square fade until all that remains is the soft rustle of leaves and the rhythm of your footsteps. Another lesson waits beyond the curve, and you feel the quiet anticipation of stepping into it. The path narrows, guiding you between rows of cypress trees whose tall, slender forms sway only slightly in the morning breeze. The air here is cooler, touched with the faint scent of resin. Light falls in long, thin shapes across the ground, shifting as the branches above move. Somewhere beyond the trees, you hear the murmur of voices, though they are softened by distance. When you emerge from the shade, the path opens into a sunlit slope, overlooking the fields. Far below, workers tend to the rows of grapevines, their movements steady and practiced. The grapes are still small, not yet touched by the deep purple of ripeness, but the vines are strong, their leaves bright in the light. The elder pauses here, leaning lightly on the carved staff he carries. His gaze travels over the land, lingering not on the workers or the vines, but on the way the sunlight moves across them. "Envy," he says after a time, "is a shadow that falls not from the one we watch, but from within ourselves. It darkens our own path, even as the other walks freely in theirs." As you stand beside him, a farmer passes on the road below, leading a donkey laden with baskets of figs. He greets the elder with a respectful nod, and the elder returns it with the same quiet grace. When the man has passed, the elder begins to walk again, and you follow. Once, he says, "I looked upon the life of a friend, his wealth, his influence, the ease with which others listened to his words, and I felt a heaviness in my chest. I told myself I only wished to be his equal, but in truth, I wished for more than I had earned, and I let that wish turn bitter. It was my teacher who reminded me that the fruit of another's labor is not ours to claim, just as their burdens are not ours to bear." You pass a low stone wall, beyond which a small orchard spreads. The trees are heavy with green fruit, still weeks from ripening. The sight of them seems to slow the elder's steps. He gestures toward them. "If you were to take these fruits now, they would be sour. They would fill neither your hunger nor your joy." Envy is much the same. It is the reaching for something before its time, or before it is truly yours. And in the reaching, we forget the sweetness of what we already hold. A light wind brushes past, carrying with it the scent of time from the hills. The elder's voice is steady, but soft. To guard against this trigger, one must look inward rather than outward. Ask yourself, what is mine to grow? What is mine to tend to? The lives of others may seem brighter, richer, or more adorned, but you do not see their hidden labors or their unspoken pains. A Stoic does not measure his worth against another's fortune, but against his own virtue. The path turns toward a small bridge that crosses a narrow stream. The water moves slowly, catching sunlight in its ripples. You both pause there, leaning over the wooden railing. A school of small fish drifts just beneath the surface, their bodies shifting in unison. Envy scatters the mind, the elder says, watching the fish. It teaches us to see life as a contest, and every contest demands winners and losers. But life is not so. The farmer with many fields and the man with one tree are not in competition. Each has his own harvest. If you are always counting another's gain, you will never have enough of your own. From somewhere nearby, the sound of a bell rings softly, perhaps from a chapel tucked into the hills. It fades quickly, leaving only the rustle of leaves and the quiet movement of the stream. The elder straightens and resumes walking, his pace unhurried. When you feel envy rising, he continues, turn it into admiration. Let it remind you of what is possible, rather than what you lack. If you see a man who has mastered a skill, let it inspire you to practice. If you see one who lives in honor, let it move you to strengthen your own integrity. In this way, the shadow becomes light. The road ahead widens once more, leading toward a cluster of stone houses with terracotta roofs. Children's laughter carries faintly through the air, mingling with the distant clink of tools. The elder slows as you approach, his eyes resting on the simple beauty of the scene. A woman sweeping her doorstep, an old man mending a fishing net in the shade. There will always be those who seem to walk ahead of you, he says at last. But you do not know how long their road has been, nor the storms they have passed through. Walk your own path with care, and you will see that it too leads to its share of sunlight. You follow him into the quiet of the village street, the lesson settling into you like the warmth of the sun on your shoulders. Ahead, the sound of the stream has faded, replaced by the gentle hum of daily life. And somewhere beyond the next turn, another truth waits to be found. The narrow street curves gently toward the open edge of the village, where the houses give way to a rolling meadow. The grass here moves like a slow tide, bending under the touch of the breeze. Patches of wild flowers sway among it, white, yellow, and soft violet, scattering a faint sweetness into the air. A narrow footpath winds through the meadow, worn smooth by years of quiet steps. The elder walks ahead, his pace steady, his robe brushing lightly against the grass at the path's edge. He seems to take in the meadow with a kind of ease, as though the openness itself is a relief after the close walls of the village. When he speaks, his voice is calm but carries a certain weight. Resentment, he says, is a burden we choose to carry. We believe it is a stone we throw at another, but in truth, it is a stone we keep in our own pocket, heavy, unyielding, and always with us. The two of you walk on until you reach a small rise. From there, the view opens over the meadow, and beyond it, the distant shimmer of the sea. The horizon stretches unbroken, a line of quiet meeting between water and sky. The elder stops here, letting the breeze move through the folds of his robe. I once knew a man, he continues, who felt wronged by his brother. Words had been spoken, sharp and careless, and they left a wound between them. Instead of tending to it, the man guarded it, kept it alive. Years passed. His brother was no longer the same man who had spoken those words, but the wound in his heart was as fresh as the day it was made. Resentment had become his companion, and it kept him from seeing the good that still remained. You take in the sight of the sea far below, the faint sound of gulls drifting up on the wind. The elder's eyes are steady on the horizon, as if it holds the memory he speaks of. Resentment binds you to the past, he says. It ties your thoughts to moments that cannot be changed, and in doing so, it steals the moments you live in now. A Stoic knows that we cannot alter what has been spoken or done. We can only decide how much of our present we will give to it. The path turns downward now, leading you toward the sound of running water. A small stream threads its way through the grass, glistening where the light catches it. The elder steps onto a flat stone at its edge and watches the current for a long moment. Consider this water, he says. It does not hold the leaves that pass into it. They move on with the flow. If it tried to keep them, it would grow stagnant and foul. So too with the mind. If we cling to every offense, we cloud our own clarity. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not the approval of a wrong. It is the release of the stone, so that we may walk without its weight. You follow him along the stream until it disappears into a small copse of trees. The air here is cooler, the ground soft underfoot. The elder pauses near a fallen log, running his hand over the moss that has grown thick upon it. To set down resentment, he continues, is not always easy. The mind will return to the moment, turning it over as if it might change with enough thought. But this is the trap. It never changes. Each return to it is another step away from peace. The only true escape is to release it, even if the wound still aches. In time, the ache fades. The weight lifts. Through the trees, you catch glimpses of the meadow opening again ahead. The elder steps back into the sunlight, and you follow. The meadow's expanse feels brighter now, the colors more vivid against the sky. There will be those, he says, who choose to keep their burdens. You cannot make them set them down, but you can choose differently. You can let the stream carry yours away and walk lighter for it. The sound of the sea is closer now, the salt air faint on the wind. The elder turns toward a path that will lead you down to the shore. You can see the glint of sunlight on the waves and hear the slow rhythm of water meeting stone. As you walk, the lesson settles deep within you, not as a command, but as an invitation to carry less, to meet each day without the shadows of yesterday pressing against your heart. The path narrows again as it approaches the shore, the sound of the waves growing clearer with each step. Somewhere in their steady movement lies the next truth, waiting to be heard. The path descends toward the sea, winding between low shrubs that release their fragrance as you brush past. Rosemary, wild sage, and salt carried from the waves ahead. The sound of the water is steady now, its rhythm like a breath taken by the earth itself. As you draw closer, you see a narrow cove framed by dark rocks, the sand within pale and fine beneath the sunlight. The elder walks to the edge of the shore and stands where the waves meet the sand. The water curls gently around his sandals before retreating, only to return again. He watches the tide for a long moment before speaking. Impatience, he says, is a refusal to move with the rhythm of the world. It is the belief that our will alone should shape the pace of things, and when life does not match it, we resist like a stone against the river. But the river does not tire, it flows on, and the stone only wears itself down. A small fishing boat drifts in the cove, its oars moving slowly through the water. The fisherman within is unhurried, setting his net with the same care he has given every morning of his life. The elder gestures toward him. See how he works. The tide will not rush for him. The fish will not leap into his boat because he commands it. And yet he is not restless. He moves with the hour as it is, not as he wishes it to be. You walk with him along the curve of the cove. the sand cool in the shade of the cliffs. The gulls above cry softly, their shadows sliding over the rocks. There was a time, the elder says, when I believed speed was a virtue, that every task done quickly was a sign of strength. But in my haste, I made poor choices, left work undone, and spoiled what might have been good. My teacher reminded me that swiftness has value only when guided by wisdom, and wisdom is a slow-growing thing. The two of you reach a flat rock at the far side of the cove. The elder sits, motioning for you to do the same. From here, you can see the full sweep of the water, the light dancing upon it, in fragments. To free yourself from impatience, he continues, you must first accept that time is not yours to control. You may set your hand to the task, but the ripening of fruit, the healing of wounds, the return of the seasons, these belong to the order of the world, not to you. The Stoic does not demand that the sun rise sooner. He wakes when it does and finds the day long enough. He picks up a small pebble from the sand beside the rock and rolls it between his fingers. Impatience is like this stone. You may hold it tightly, thinking it gives you power, but in truth, it only keeps your hand closed. When you set it down, your hand is free again, to work, to receive, to rest. The tide has risen slightly now, the water coming closer to the base of the rock. Foam gathers at the edges, swirling before it slips away again. The elder watches it for a time, his gaze calm. There will always be moments when you wish for the end before the beginning is complete, he says. But to live well is to be present in each part, the planting, the tending, the waiting, and the harvest. If you rush to the end, you miss the fullness of the path itself. From the mouth of the cove, the fisherman rows back toward the shore. His net is heavy with his catch, and he moves no faster now than when he set out. The elder watches him arrive, the boat sliding gently into the sand. His patience did not slow his success, it made it certain. And so it is with all things worth having. You both rise, leaving the rock behind. The path now turns away from the shore, climbing slowly toward the cliffs above. The air grows warmer as you ascend, and the scent of the sea lingers in the folds of your robe. At the top, the view opens once more over the meadow, the village, and the distant hills beyond. The elder looks out over the land, his voice quiet. When you walk with the world's pace, you will find there is no hurry, yet nothing is left undone. You follow him toward a narrow trail leading into the hills, the sound of the sea fading behind you. Somewhere ahead, beyond the turn of the path, another lesson waits in the quiet spaces of the day. The narrow trail winds upward into the hills, where the air feels drier and scented with wild herbs warmed by the sun. The path is scattered with pale stones, and each step brings a soft crunch beneath your sandals. Above, the sky stretches in a wide arc of blue, unbroken except for the slow drift of a single white cloud. The elder walks ahead at an even pace, his staff touching the earth in a steady rhythm. As the climb grows steeper, you notice the way he looks, neither hurried nor strained, each step taken for itself, not for the thought of the summit. When he finally speaks, his voice is unhurried, as though he has been holding the words for the right moment. Overthinking, he says, is like stirring clear water until it clouds. You believe you are making progress by turning the thoughts again and again. But in truth, you are only making it harder to see. The path opens briefly onto a ledge, offering a view of the land below, the meadow, the sea, and the curve of the village roofs. You pause there together, feeling the wind touch your face. Somewhere far below, a shepherd's call carries faintly upward, softened by distance. In my youth, the elder continues, I would wrestle with decisions until my mind grew weary. I thought that enough thought could make the uncertain certain, but the truth is, the world will always hold unknowns. The Stoic learns to weigh the matter with care, then to set the decision free, letting action carry it forward. Endless thought is a prison without walls. You walk on, the path narrowing again as it threads between tall rocks. Their surfaces are marked with the grooves of wind and rain, carved slowly over centuries. The elder runs his hand over one as he passes. The mind, too, is shaped by what it holds to. If you hold confusion, it deepens its grooves. But if you hold to clarity, by pausing, deciding, and moving on, you carve a smoother way for thought to travel. A small plateau appears ahead, where a lone olive tree stands, its roots gripping the rocky earth. The elder walks to its shade and sits upon a flat stone. You join him, and together you listen to the soft whisper of leaves moving overhead. To guard against this trigger, he says, you must learn when thought has served its purpose. Ask yourself, do I seek more clarity or only more certainty? Clarity is within your reach, certainty often is not. The wise accept what is clear enough to act upon, and they let the rest belong to the unknown, where it always was. From where you sit, the view extends far into the distance. You can see the faint shimmer of the river winding through the valley, the dark green of distant groves, and the pale ribbon of another road leading elsewhere. The elder's gaze seems to take it all in without effort, as though seeing without grasping. Overthinking, he says, is also a thief of peace. It keeps the mind in the past or the future, circling what has been or what may be, and in doing so, it abandons the present. But life is lived only in this breath, this moment. The rest is shadow and shape. He picks up a small twig and draws a circle in the dust at his feet. This is the present moment. Within it, you have choice, action, and the chance to shape what comes next. Outside it are the shadows, the endless ifs and maybes that offer no ground to stand upon. A Stoic steps within the circle and stays there, working with what is real. The air grows warmer as the sun tilts further overhead. From beyond the rocks, you hear the faint sound of running water. Rising, the elder leads you toward it, and soon you find a narrow spring trickling from between two stones. Its flow is small but constant, threading away into the grass. Do you see? He asks. The spring does not pause to wonder if it will reach the sea. It simply moves, step by step, hollowing its path in time. This is how the mind must move. Clear, steady, unburdened by the weight of turning the same stone in its hands again and again. The two of you follow the spring's path for a short while, until it vanishes into a thicket. The trail bends once more, leading toward a rise where the land ahead is hidden from view. The elder's pace is the same as before, steady, deliberate, without urgency. As you climb toward the unseen, the wind carries the scent of pine from somewhere ahead. You feel the weight of the lesson settling in, not as a command to never think deeply, but as a reminder to think with purpose, then act and trust the path beneath your feet. At the crest, the land opens again, revealing a wide plain bathed in sunlight. A faint line of distant mountains stands on the horizon, softened by haze. The elder's eyes rest there for a moment, before he steps forward, the path already drawing you both toward the next lesson, waiting beyond the plain. The plain stretches wide before you, a sea of golden grass, swaying gently beneath the afternoon sun. The air here is warmer, and the hum of insects weaves through the stillness. A narrow road, pale and worn, cuts straight through the field, guiding you forward. Each step presses a soft mark into the earth, quickly softened by the wind. The elder walks in silence for a time, his gaze steady ahead. Now and then he glances at the sky, as if measuring the hour by the sun's position. When he finally speaks, it is with the slow certainty of one who has turned the thought in his mind many times. Comparison, he says, is the quiet thief of contentment. It walks beside you in stillness, pointing at the paths of others until you forget the worth of your own. Ahead, the road rises slightly, and as you reach the crest, a small settlement comes into view, a cluster of houses with red-tiled roofs, a few goats grazing nearby, and the glint of water from a well at the center. You pause there together, looking down at the simple scene. I have seen men, the elder continues, who live well and yet feel poor, not because they lack, but because another has more. They measure their worth, not by the fullness of their lives, but by the shadow their neighbor casts. This is the trap. Once you begin to measure in this way, there is no end to the scale. Descending toward the settlement, you pass a shepherd sitting on a low wall, mending a leather strap. His clothes are worn but clean, and he hums quietly to himself. His goats graze nearby, their bells chiming softly in the air. The elder's eyes rest on the man for a moment. See how he tends to his own work, unmoved by what others possess. This is freedom, to live without the constant weighing of your life against another's. The road narrows between two stone houses, and the smell of baking bread drifts into the air. A woman passes carrying a jug of water, greeting you both with a brief smile before disappearing into a doorway. The elder walks slowly here, letting the sounds of the place, footsteps, voices, the creak of a cart, settle into the quiet rhythm of your steps. When I was younger, he says, I would look upon the lives of others and see only what was bright in them. I did not see their shadows, their troubles, the weight they carried unseen. And so I imagined their lives to be lighter than mine. This is the danger of comparison. It is built upon what is visible, but life is lived in what is hidden as well. You emerge from the narrow street into the open square, where the well sits at its center. A boy draws water, filling a clay jar before lifting it with care. He glances briefly at you both, before carrying it away, barefoot on the warm stones. The elder watches him disappear into the distance, then turns back to you. To free yourself from this trap, he says, you must turn your gaze from what is beyond your reach to what is already in your hands. Ask yourself, not what do they have that I do not, but what do I have that I am not yet using well. A breeze moves through the square, carrying with it the scent of the open fields beyond the settlement. The elder begins walking toward the far edge of the square, his voice low but clear. The measure of a life is not the height of its walls or the weight of its gold, but the steadiness of its heart. If you spend your days looking over the wall into another's garden, your own will go untended, and in time, you will find you have no harvest to call your own. The road beyond the square leads back into the fields, where the grass is shorter and dotted with small white flowers. The hum of insects fades as the breeze grows stronger, pressing gently against your face. Comparison is a habit, the elder says as you walk, and like all habits, it can be broken. When you feel it rising, turn instead to gratitude for the path beneath your feet, the work that is yours, the breath that is in you now. Gratitude closes the door to the thief, and you will find your days lighter for it. Ahead, the plain begins to slope upward toward a low ridge. The land beyond is hidden from view, but you can see the way the road curves toward it, the grass bending in the wind along its edges, The elder keeps his eyes on that ridge as you approach, the steps unhurried, the silence between you filled only with the sound of the wind and the faint creak of his staff. When you reach the base of the ridge, the sun is lower, casting long shadows across the path. The elder glances once at the sky, then begins the ascent without a word. The air feels cooler here, touched by the promise of what lies beyond the rise, another lesson, waiting to be seen. The ridge rises gently beneath your feet, its path worn into the earth by years of quiet passage. The air is cooler now, and the sound of the wind has changed. It whispers through the grass in low, steady tones, as if speaking in a language older than the road itself. At the top, the land opens into a broad view of rolling hills, their slopes painted with the soft gold of late afternoon light. The elder stops for a moment, leaning lightly on his staff as he looks out over the hills. Regret, he says at last, is like a fog that settles in the mind. It does not change the shape of the land beneath it. It only hides it from view. You stand beside him, letting the breeze touch your face. Far below, a river winds through the valley, its waters catching flashes of light as it bends around the curves of the earth. The sight is partly veiled by drifting mist, rising from the cooler water into the warm air. In my younger years, the elder continues, I would carry my past with me as though it were a chest of stones. Every mistake, every word I wished unsaid, every choice I believed should have been different, I kept them all. I told myself they were lessons, but I returned to them too often, polishing the memory until it shone more than the day I was living in. The path begins to slope downward, leading you toward the valley floor. The air grows richer with the scent of water and earth, and the murmur of the river becomes clearer with each step. The trouble with regret, the elder says, is that it keeps us walking backward. Our eyes remain fixed on what cannot be changed, and so we stumble in the ground before us. A Stoic knows that the past exists only as memory, and memory is not the master of the present, unless we make it so. You reach the riverbank, where smooth stones lie scattered along the shore. The elder picks one up, turning it over in his hand. This stone, he says, has been shaped by the river for many years. It cannot be returned to what it once was, and yet it is no less itself for the change. So it is with us. What we have done shapes us, but it need not weigh us down. The river's current is slow here, gliding past with a quiet persistence. Sunlight flickers in its ripples, breaking into pieces and reforming with each movement. The elder steps to the water's edge and lets the stone fall from his hand into the flow. It disappears beneath the surface without a splash, carried onward in silence. To free yourself from regret, he says, you must see it for what it is, a wish for a different past. But no amount of wishing can make the river flow in the other direction. We can only learn from what it has carried us through and shape our steps from this shore forward. You walk together along the bank, the sound of the water mingling with the faint rustle of reeds. A heron stands in the shallows, perfectly still, waiting for the right moment to strike. The elder watches it for a moment. The heron does not brood over the fish it missed yesterday, he says. It waits for the fish that is here now. In this way it survives, and in this way, so should we. The path leaves the riverbank and winds through a grove of willows. Their branches bend low, touching the earth, and the air beneath them is cool and green. You notice how the light shifts as it filters through the leaves, softening the world into a quiet haze. Regret will try to visit you, the elder says as you walk beneath the trees. It will arrive in the voice of memory, in the thought of what might have been. When it does, greet it, take the lesson it offers, and let it go on its way. You do not need to offer it a place at your table. The grove opens again to the slope of another hill, this one gentler than the ridge before. The sun has dipped lower now, and the shadows stretch long across the grass. The elder's steps remain steady as you climb, the lessons of the river still settling in your mind. When you live without regret, he says softly, you live more fully in the only place you can act, in this moment, with these hands on this path. And that is enough. At the hill's crest, the land ahead is bathed in the warm light of early evening. The sky holds the faintest blush of coming dusk, and the road curves away toward the horizon. The elder pauses only briefly before stepping forward again, the next lesson already waiting beyond the bend. The road beyond the hill bends gently toward a narrow pass between two rocky slopes. The air here is cooler, touched with the scent of stone warmed by the day's sun. As you walk, the sound of your footsteps changes, the packed earth giving way to gravel that crunches softly beneath your sandals. Shadows gather in the folds of the hills, and the light narrows to a golden ribbon ahead. The elder's eyes trace the path, but his steps do not quicken. The hunger for control, he says quietly, is a restlessness that never sleeps. It is the belief that all things should bend to our will, and when they do not, we press harder, until the effort itself becomes our burden. Beyond the pass, the path widens to a terrace, overlooking a patchwork of farmland. Fields of wheat sway in slow waves, and the faint sound of a plow cutting the soil drifts up from below. The elder rests his hand on the stone wall that borders the terrace. There was a time, he continues, when I thought peace could be built by arranging every detail of my life. Just so, I would set my plans as if they were walls high and certain, only to see them fall when the world moved in its own way. I mistook control for safety, and in doing so, I chained my contentment to what was never truly mine. You both watch as a farmer guides his plow behind two oxen, the rhythm of their work unbroken. The elder gestures toward them. The farmer shapes the furrow. Yes, but he cannot command the rain, nor the sun, nor the seasons. His work is to tend what he can, and to let the rest belong to the nature of things. Leaving the terrace, you follow a winding track down toward the valley. The air grows warmer, carrying the scent of freshly turned soil. In the distance, you hear the soft clink of tools and the quiet murmur of voices. To free oneself from this restlessness, the elder says, is to draw a clear line between what can be guided and what must be received. The Stoics call this understanding the discipline of control, not the grasping at all things, but the wise tending of those within your reach. You pass a small garden enclosed by a low fence. Inside, rows of vegetables grow in neat lines, and a woman kneels among them, pulling away weeds. She looks up briefly, smiling before returning to her task. The elder's gaze lingers there. She cannot hasten the sprouting of seeds, yet she does not stand idle. She works in the space given to her, and she leaves the rest to the turning of the earth. This is the balance we seek. The path curves again, leading you to a shallow stream. Flat stones create a crossing, and you step carefully from one to the next. The water moves gently, carrying small leaves and twigs along its way. The elder pauses midway across, looking down into the current. When we try to control what lies beyond us, he says, we are like someone standing in a stream, straining to push the water back toward its source. The effort is endless, and the river does not obey. Yet when we move with the current, guiding our steps upon the stones, we cross with ease. On the far side of the stream, the path begins to climb again toward the open fields. The sun is lower now, casting the world in the warm tones of late day. A breeze moves through the tall grasses, setting them to a gentle sway. There will be storms, the elder says. winds that pull your plans apart, seasons that come too soon or too late. If your peace depends upon bending the world to your will, you will always be at its mercy. But if your peace is rooted in what you can shape, your choices, your actions, your response, then the world may change 1,000 times, and you will remain steady. The ridge ahead glows in the evening light, its crest sharp against the sky. As you near the top, the fields behind you fall into shadow, while the land ahead is still touched by the sun's fading gold. The elder pauses there, letting the view settle between you. To live without the restlessness of control, he says, is not to live without care. It is to care fully for what is yours, and to let the rest pass like the wind across the hills, felt but not held. The road dips once more toward a distant grove of trees, their dark shapes waiting in the quiet of the approaching evening. The elder steps forward, and you follow, the final lesson of the day just beyond the shade. The grove ahead stands like a quiet boundary between the open fields and the coming night. The trees are tall and close together, their trunks dark against the fading gold of the sky. As you step beneath their branches, the air cools and the soft scent of pine drifts around you. The sounds of the open land fade until all that remains is the muted rustle of leaves overhead. The elder's pace does not change though the shadows deepen. His staff taps lightly against the earth, steady as a heartbeat. After a while he speaks, his voice low but clear in the stillness. Fear, he says, is the tightest grip a mind can know. It curls itself around your thoughts until all else is pushed away. It narrows the world, turns the horizon into a wall, and keeps the eyes fixed on what might harm rather than on what might guide. A narrow trail winds deeper into the grove, the ground soft with fallen needles. You walk in silence for a time, the dim light lending a dreamlike quality to the path. Somewhere in the distance an owl calls, a slow, deliberate note that hangs in the air before fading into quiet. When I was young, the elder continues, I believed fear was a signal to turn back, but in time I learned it is also a call to look closer. Many fears are shadows thrown by the mind, longer, darker, and more shapeless than the thing that casts them. We give them form by facing them, and in doing so we see what is truly there. The trail emerges briefly into a small clearing where the last light of day lingers. In the center stands a weathered stone, its surface marked by lines carved long ago. The elder rests his hand upon it, tracing the grooves. A Stoic knows that fear often comes from trying to live in tomorrow before it arrives, or in a future that may never be. But life will meet you only where you stand. When you return to this step, this breath, the grip of fear loosens. You both move on, re-entering the dimness beneath the trees. The elder's voice is steady, unhurried. To free yourself from fear, you must first know its name. Ask yourself, what is it I truly dread? Is it the thing itself, or the thought of it? The mind will often flee from shadows it has drawn with its own hand. The path begins to rise gently, leading toward a faint glow ahead. Through the branches you see the first hints of the open sky, returning, streaked with the soft colors of dusk. Courage, the elder says, is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to walk forward with it in your company, without letting it guide your steps. When you learn to carry fear lightly, it no longer carries you. You step out from the grove and onto a high hilltop where the view opens in all directions. The last light of day stretches across the land, the fields below bathed in shadow, the distant sea holding a band of silver where the sun has touched it. The wind moves freely here, cool against your face. The elder stands at the hill's edge, his robe shifting in the breeze. "You have now seen 10 triggers that pull at the mind," he says. "Each of them, anger, vanity, envy, resentment, impatience, overthinking, comparison, regret, the hunger for control, and fear, has the power to lead you away from the quiet strength within you. And each of them can be met with the stillness of choice." He turns toward you, the faintest trace of a smile in his eyes. The Stoics did not seek to escape life's storms. They learned to stand within them, anchored by what could not be taken. You too can walk this path. And in walking it, you will find that the world may change around you, but you will remain steady, present, and free. The sun slips below the horizon, leaving the first stars trembling in the darkening sky. The elder begins to walk down the far side of the hill, his staff marking the rhythm of his steps. You follow, the air around you filled with the quiet strength of all you have heard. The road ahead is long, but lighter now, and the night is wide with possibility. If you found this journey meaningful, take a moment to share it with someone who could walk this path beside you. Subscribe to hear more of these timeless teachings, and let the wisdom of the Stoics guide you in each step forward.